Welcome to the Currently Cringing podcast. I'm your host, Anisha Ramakrishna. I'm a TV personality and entrepreneur. Join me as I spill the chai on my cringeworthy life experiences with a side of dating, pop culture, and lots of laughs. Hey guys, welcome to Currently Cringing. Happy Raksha Bandhan, Aditya.
Happy Rocky.
Well, before we get into Rakhi, I just wanted to get this out of the way. So in pop culture news today, apparently Hailey Bieber has a new flavor of Krispy Kreme donuts coming out. It's a strawberry flavor that's more intense. And I am obsessed with Krispy Kreme. And so I have to have it. And strawberry glazed is my favorite.
For me, it's just the regular glazed. I used to have that, I think they had it at school for us every other Friday. So that's my choice.
Wow, they had it at your school?
Yeah, in middle school, we had a Krispy Kreme a block from our school. And then I went to boarding school in New England, and then it was all about Dunkin' Donuts there. So, brand ambassador for both.
Yeah, I used to love Dunkin' Donuts, but that was because I didn't grow up around a Krispy Kreme. And then when we got a Krispy Kreme in the neighborhood, I realized what the hype was about. And now I really don't want a Dunkin' Donut. I only like Krispy Kreme donuts.
Interesting. Okay, so you definitely have a brand preference.
I do. And I know they had that accounting fraud issue back in the day. And so a few locations closed down, and one of those locations happened to be the one by my house. But Hailey Bieber had this whole event at the Krispy Kreme in Times Square, and the internet's going nuts because she wore this red cocktail dress and looked really glam and pretty. And then Justin Bieber shows up in sweats and Crocs. I didn't see what the big deal was.
I mean, if that's the look, I don't know why people get so upset about things like this.
Yeah, it was the internet was like, oh my God, they're both going to different events. I'm like, no, they just have their own personal style. What was Justin going to do? Show up in khakis and a polo or a suit? What did you want from him? It's Justin Bieber.
I'm not even the person to talk about fashion. I think once you're that famous and wealthy, you can do whatever you want.
And then the rest of the internet, I guess, has nothing better to do but to spectate on this.
People need to get a life and enjoy the rest of their summer,
Agree. It's Rakhi. For people who don't know, Rakhi is a Hindu festival that celebrates brothers and sisters, celebrates the bond between brothers and sisters. Raksha Bandhan actually means knot of protection. So I never celebrated Raksha Bandhan in my family. We're South Indians. We're Tamilian.
You didn't celebrate with your brother?
That, but I did celebrate it in my Indian friend group. No, because we don't.
I actually didn't know that.
South
but then
Indian
again,
culture. It's a
my
North
family
Indian
is
thing.
from Bombay/Delhi, and we have a lot of North Indian friends, and it's like a big thing in those cities.
Yeah, it's huge. And my family's from Bombay, so we know about it, and we obviously did it with our peers. But it wasn't
and I think it's meant. It was originally just meant for brothers and sisters.
It's a big holiday in India.
Spread to cousins, right? Like cousin brother, cousin sister, and then it became friends afterwards. I don't know if I would tie Rakhi or have Rakhi tied on me by people outside my family, but that's just a personal preference.
Yes, I only did it with my friends growing up. And basically, for the listeners who aren't South Asian, you tie a thread, right? The girl ties a thread on the boy.
That's right.
Why isn't it the other way around? Why is our culture so patriarchal? Why isn't anyone tying the thread on the girl?
Yeah, but the girl also gets money. So that's a good deal.
I guess.
My sister tied a thread on me and I Venmo'd her $201 just now.
How did you feel about that?
It's $50 more than I gave last year. Inflation. Gotta raise those prices.
it is a sad day for many in the dating world because if you are brown and you got the dreaded Happy Rocky text or post and you were tagged on IG or on social media by your crush, it means it's over. I feel like that's the ultimate friend zone, being told Happy Rocky.
I don't want to go out and say Rocky is a scam because it's not. It was meant to be for siblings, as I said, and people in your family. But whoever decided to appropriate Rocky towards people not in your family, that person created a scam whereby guys who already were having issues hooking up with girls have to face another barrier. And if you're like a Rocky sister, whatever, that person will never hook up with you ever for the rest of your life. So, and also like who's agreeing to this? Why would you ever do this?
I don't know, but today we woke up to a lot of spewing, a lot of people posting.
No.
People of the opposite sex as their Rocky sibling. And I found it hilarious.
Like multiple girls kissing you on the cheek, but you're like just way deep in the friend zone. I would be so upset and I would just be like, I would just be mortified. I would never even repost that because my friends would be like, "What are you doing?"
Well, I think it's sad for most guys because the girl is essentially telling you she's not interested by calling you her brother.
Well, there's two. One is if the girl chooses that, like, oh, I want to be your Rocky sister. And then there's like if the guy is the one saying, I want you to be the Rocky sister, in which case you're just an idiot because then you're friend zoning yourself. Unless, of course, this is someone that like you just don't ever see a future with, and maybe you find not attractive at all. But I'm just talking from the perspective of like, hey, this is a guy who I saw on Instagram with two girls who were significantly more attractive than him. And I'm just like, really? At no point would you have slept with them? Like, come on.
Exactly. I find it weird. And sadly, one of our good friends was given a Rocky bracelet. And so they were friend zoned. It's happened to a few people around us this week. You're laughing because we can't go into detail, but the story is hilarious. And when we were told that our friend tied a Rocky, I mean, at that point, you just gotta laugh, you know.
You pour one out for this poor guy. But my thing is like from a strategy perspective, let's say you are friend zoning yourself with the Rocky, you need to be like, okay, fine. I'm gonna protect you or whatever, or you're gonna protect me and I'm gonna give you money, but you gotta like hook me up with your girlfriends. That's like, I'm not saying it's good, but at least you gotta get something out of it. Where like if you're my Rocky sister, like let's say you tied Rocky on me, you gotta be like dealing a girl to me every week. Which we don't even do the Rocky, and you're doing this to me all the time anyways. Like you introduce me to people, you set me up with people who set me up with other people. So there's like a give and take. I'm like, there are people who are Rocky sisters who aren't doing anything for their Rocky
You're useless
brothers.
and you're just posting on IG, like kissing the dude's cheeks, and he's probably devastated.
I mean, that guy, all these guys need to go to therapy. Like what are you doing? And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of them are in relationships or whatever, but like you're single and your, female friend is posting Rocky things, kissing you on the cheek on Instagram. I'm really sorry.
It's hilarious. But today's topic is actually not about Rocky, but for a lot of the listeners, we wanted to fill you in on an Indian festival, and today's the day. So happy Rocky to all who celebrate. But today we're actually talking about a topic that has to do with, I guess, Rocky. Can men and women be friends? That is the topic today.
I think this is a popular topic in dating these days and other videos, podcasts, whatever. And I think it is relevant to Rocky because we did talk about this whole friend zone thing. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, we're deep diving into this topic that has, caused a lot of debate. And I want to correct that statement. Not can men and women, can straight men and women be friends in
Right.
2023? And before we dive in, I will give you a heads up on how I feel.
Mm.
I do think it's a red flag when you meet women and they say like, "Oh, I'm only friends with guys," or "I don't like girls," or "I have more guy friends than girlfriends," or "I don't find it easy to get along with women." Like those types of statements for me, those are red flags. Like a girl that doesn't have any girlfriends.
Right. It's definitely better to have friends of your gender than the other way around. But I think a balance is very important. Like it's because you get two different perspectives. And like, I think I've discussed in the pod before, like you have that masculine sort of like, oh yeah, like I'm a guy. And then the girls who kind of like balance you out and like they give you a different um set of advice, perspective, friendship, all of that.
And in most cases, I think if a male has only female friends, he's probably gay.
Yeah, that's true. There was also that movie, what was it, I Love You Man, where Paul Rudd's character doesn't have any guy friends. He only has female friends and girlfriends. And so the whole point of the movie is he was trying to find guy friends. So that was all kind of they talk about how that was a bit red flaggy. So I do think that you do need your bros, but like you do need like one or two close girlfriends that kind of like, should be giving you advice. And, I think that's important. Like, because how else do you, there's so many girls who have told me, like, dude, like, don't text this way. Don't over text, don't under text, wear these clothes, take the girl to this restaurant, pay for this many dates. Just like random stuff like that, that like 5 to 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known. And like the last 5 to 10 years of female friendships and conversations, I just learned so much from them, you know?
Right. And I also think gender roles, plays a part, rigid
Hmm.
gender roles. For example, in my case, I grew up with rigid gender roles. Like I was not allowed to have friends of the opposite sex. I was not allowed to hang
Really?
out with boys or go to homes and just play with a boy. Like that just wasn't a thing. And so I actually was very uncomfortable around men or boys or males my entire childhood, adolescence, really even in my early 20s. I only became comfortable, I'd say, probably once I turned 30. But throughout
Wow.
my life, I was uncomfortable because I just thought, you know, if you're with a guy or you're with men, then you're probably dating them or you like them or something like that. And that only was because of how I was raised.
For me, I went to an all boys school, so I just didn't have access or like interactions with women, except for we had these like New York City preppy dances where you'd meet girls the other sex, and I just like didn't really know how to talk to them, right? Then I went to high school and I made a few really, really good female friends. And then it kind of got switched because in college it was all about hooking up, right? And in college, I never really formed that many like lasting female friendships. So it was weird. And then I think my mid to late 20s and then into my 30s is where I like really developed good female friendships with girls that I like didn't want to hook up with, but like were just, people like you and Hot Friend Sheets and a bunch of girls from business school, just like people that you can just talk about. You can even talk about sex, right? But without being like, I want to bone you.
Exactly. And in my case, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but you don't date your mom's friends' children growing up, like your peers, like
Mm,
aunties, kids, your friend group. Like you don't, that's just not something that happens in our culture. Like you watch Western movies, right? And
hmm.
you see like they're dating and they're in middle school. Like that just doesn't happen in the Indian friend group, or at least in mine, it didn't. And I don't know other people who had their own individual Indian friend groups where that happened. That really isn't a thing. You're more like cousins.
I mean, I think that needs to change in the next generation. I think it's just like a stupid brown boomer thing. And I think all of us, if we had kids, would be like very like at least I don't know about sex positive, but at least dating positive. Like go date so that you're not that weird kid in high school who's never talked to a person of the other sex, or by college that you're like, I've never kissed anyone. Like that needs to be over.
But do you agree that that was the case when we were growing up? So,
Sorry, I just went off on a tangent.
um,
Yes, I agree with you.
because like my friends that you see on Family Karma who are male, or like Neil or Julio, these are people I've known my entire life. I just don't
Yeah.
see them that way. And there's no flirtation going on. We're not even meeting like in a dating capacity in any way. And even me and you also dated my sister.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know
Good
that.
good times. She's great. We reconnected at your wedding. She's a lovely girl. Yeah, I told you if she and I ever got married, then you can tie Rocky on me in that one scenario.
Yeah. But like we just have this cousin friendship. And I think that's because of our boomer parents. That's just how we were raised. And if you were to be interested in someone of the opposite sex, then it would be outside of your South Asian friend group.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't think I ever dated Indian girls until I was 30, now that I think about it. And then, or no, I think I dated one in my 20s, and then 30 to 35 was like all brown girls. And you know half of these girls, and I've like messaged you from the bathroom of a restaurant while I was about to break up with one of them. Like, you know all the stories.
Right. And there's more of this like cousin friendship amongst all our brown friends. It's twisted, but it is the case. Like no one's looking to date each other.
But is that just in our 20s and teens or whatever? I think by 30s, people are
Yeah,
more
well,
open
I'm
to
saying in
it.
your 30s, if you're hanging out with a new brown girl, she's probably not your friend. I'm just talking about your
Yeah.
established friends.
Right. Okay. Totally get that. Yeah. But then I don't know. Sometimes like the parent, that's the worst thing is the boomer parents would be like, oh, like, why did you guys never date? It's like, because you told us not to.
You told us not to.
You told us dating and sex were bad. And now you're like, oh, I want a child. It's like, guys, you know how children are born?
And even with hot neighbor Julio, he's 10 years younger than me, and he was my brother's best friend. And I've known him since he was 4. But then you see Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas have a 10-year age gap. So when I look at Julio, I think of him as, a little brother. So,
Yeah, I totally get that.
it's different. But if I guess you are meeting new people later in life, then there is some flirtation and you do
I
want to.
mean, there are except there are exceptions. Like, my ex-girlfriend, she was a family friend. She was the littlest sister of one of my friends growing up, and we dated for like a year and a half, and it didn't work out. And I wish her all the best. But that was one of those scenarios where like I never saw it as a possibility growing up because it was like a very like cousin sister type thing. So like maybe I think the parents are like, oh, I guess you can open yourself up to the possibilities of things in your 30s, right? So it can always happen.
But would you say you also looked at her as an option because you were put in that position? You are now both living in New York City and you just
Hmm.
happen to talk and rekindle things as first as friends. And then you're like, oh, maybe we
Yeah.
each
I
other.
think what happened is that I just saw her as like, oh, my buddy's sister. I'm gonna like show her around and introduce her to people. But I think she had other plans, and like we got drunk and she made a move. And once a girl makes a move on me, you know that. Like I'm just like it's game over for me.
Simp.
Yeah.
But why do you think there is so much skepticism in society with male and female friendships? And of course, there is the LGBTQ community, but we're strictly talking about straight people right now.
We're just not qualified enough to talk about the LGBT
We're not
community.
qualified enough. It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Why is there skepticism when men and women are friends?
I think it's because you have so many situations where people will cheat or there's like residual feelings or something going on. If it's like a strong friendship that's been a long time and there's never been any hookup or whatever, then I think it's okay. But you have so many times, whether it's in media or you just hear about it, where it's like one of the two parties has had a crush on the other person for a long time. So that's where the stigma, I would say, comes in society.
Yeah, I think people find it hard to believe that a deep connection can exist without romantic intentions because of what we see on television predominantly.
I think also like it makes a difference if the person of the opposite sex is in a relationship, or like if you're both in relationships, if one is single or if you're both single, right? It's like, I guess the thing would be like, for example, if I was dating a new girl and there was a female friend that I'm longtime friends with who's also single, right? Versus you who are married. That new girl I'm dating would be less threatened by you because you're married. But the single girl should be like, who the fuck is this? You know?
Absolutely. If even if you had a single girlfriend right now, me as your friend, I'd be like, who is this? Like, why don't we know her?
Exactly.
And if my husband had a single girlfriend, we're filing papers.
The
I'm calling my
screaming, not
lawyer,
even the screaming, just maybe storm out of the room.
screaming. And he does have female friends that he went
Hmm.
to school with, med school with, but they're all married and they all live in other states.
Right. So that makes it easier. And plus, like, once you've been introduced to each other and you know of each other, it's not so bad. I think it's when people are kind of shady and it's just like, oh, who's Sarah? And it's like, oh, I've never told you about her. Like, she's this blah, 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 you know? And I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, there are times in my life where I've been a little shady and I was dating someone and they're like, oh, who's this girl that just popped up on your phone? And I'm just like, I've never heard of this person. Like
Really?
long ago.
What did you say?
I was like, oh, I met her. It was like almost like I had met her at camp type story. It was like, oh, I've never told you about her. Like she's a friend from like a friend of a friend from college or something. And
But was she really just someone in the roster?
yeah, she was like, it was like one of those things that I was dating a girl, but we hadn't got exclusive yet. And there was another girl on the roster who was texting with me. And it was kind of like I had to like navigate and juggle those two. That's where it's like I would never like cheat, but it was one of those like I probably shouldn't be seeing another girl, but I was because we had never defined anything. So yeah.
Yeah, you didn't define the relationship, so who cares? I'm not okay with my partner having friends of the opposite sex that are single, but then I say that and you're my friend and you're single. Neil is my friend and he's single.
Julio.
Julio is not single.
But for a while he was, to be fair.
Yeah, he was for a while, but I think he's just so young and like the neighbor that I grew
Uh,
up with that's like family.
and then there were family karma people too, right? Like Brian, people like that.
The family karma people, I am friends with them. Most people on family karma are married. So I don't know. What if Serge, my husband, had a friend like you of the opposite sex?
Well, I think you the problem is you should have known about this person by now. That's the thing.
Right.
Whereas like Serge came to New York and met me and Neil and we all went to a concert together. So
Yeah, this is our crew. This is the friend group.
yeah,
Like he became part of the group that was already existing.
right. Nothing shady. I think it's like when someone's hidden for a long period of time, like at your reception, like where was this female friend at your reception, or why have I never heard or met or something? Maybe like a call. I don't know. Obviously everyone's busy, but it's just like it's tough to hear about someone long after.
What is your criteria, when you have your significant other? Do you want her having single guy friends?
Yeah, as long as it's almost like, can you account for them? It's like, how are you friends with this person? So one thing that's kind of a red flag for me is when like girls or even guys have a lot of friends of the opposite sex, but they're from dating apps. And it's like, this is my friend from Hinge. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, it's almost worse than that Bumble BFF example because it's of the opposite sex and you clearly went on a date at some point, probably made out. And it's like, now you're friends? Like, I don't know. I don't get it.
or they used to date, or they've hooked up.
Right, which could mean anything. We don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, no.
And I think it's okay. Like there might be like one or two cases, but it's like if there's like a number of those people, and look, again, those shouldn't be your best friends. I actually am in touch with people who I've been on dates with from Hinge, and I wouldn't say they're friend. Like I threw all these Indian parties last summer, and like I actually invited some of those girls, and I said, come to these fun events, and I introduced them to people, but they're not like my friends. They're just like people I'm in good terms with. But if you're like going around your significant other being like, these are my like good female friends, it's like you don't have other female friends that like platonic ones. They're like only girls that you like went on 1 to 3 dates with and may have made out with. That's a bit weird.
Agree. But I do think now that, I have male friends who are single, who are like family to me, you being one of them, I will say you can have friends of the opposite sex, but each friendship should be investigated, right? Like, how did you become friends? Who is this person? What are their intentions? What are your text messages like
Well,
before, you're, what is it? Define the relationship even with
it's
friends.
almost like you're writing a thesis and it's like you have to cite your sources and you have to like provide a bibliography. It's like we met in college. Like here are some photos from college and here are the text messages and like here's his dating history and my dating history.
Exactly.
So and like maybe this is why we never hooked up. It's like we just like had a really broy relationship and like maybe it's like this person's boyfriend and I were friends in college, therefore she is forever off limits. Then it's okay. It's like all right, go have fun, fucking hang out on the couch together, no problem. It like I just like having the female perspective. Like even my guy friends wives and fiancés and girlfriends whatever, like I'm friends with them too, and that's important and that's a different relationship, and it actually helps my relationship with my guy friends because like, oh, like my really good friend gets along with my wife, I don't even have to talk to him, blah blah blah, I can get the scoop from Lauren. So that's kind of also a benefit.
Yeah. But now gender is so fluid, right? We're living in this world now where it doesn't really matter what you are.
I don't want to get canceled. I mean, gender is fluid, but I do think it's I guess I have not really come across any trans people. So I can't speak to it, but like I do like actually having gay friends who give me perspective. So
Yeah.
that's obviously not a gender, but it is different to talk to a straight man, a gay man, and a woman, and a gay woman. So I've actually never had the gay woman perspective, but I do have a few gay friends, and they like kind of give me the tips on things maybe sexually. They'd be like, hey, this is what all of us are taking, blah blah blah, this is the positions we're trying, I don't know. And then just they're just good at fashion, I don't know, it's all good stuff. They're the ones who told me about Ozempic long before anyone else.
But even the younger generation is changing. Like when I talk to my brother or Julio, who are both 28, they have many friends who are girls and they're friends. They're all friends. They're like, oh, I see her as my friend. I don't see her as someone I'm dating or want to date. It's
And I think
very
that's
different.
totally normal because if you think about it, like if you're in a 50-50 high school or college, like you shouldn't just limit yourself to one set of people and the other is just seen as like boning potential, right? And let's say you're in a relationship, then what? You just don't talk to half the population? That's crazy.
I think it changes also once you get married, like dynamics change in life, depending on what stage you're in.
I think it's dangerous to actually view people based on gender, like in terms of friendships or whatever, because that extends to work, right? Like ultimately, you're all just people working together and you should be friends, colleagues, whatever, based on whatever gender, whether you're trans, male or female. So it's actually progressive of us.
Oh, I think we're very progressive. If you're friends with a girl that I've never met,
Right. Well, I think now you're at that point, right? It's like if it's early in the relationship, that's fine. But now that you've been together for like 2 years and you got married, reception, all that stuff, then yeah, it's a red flag. And the other thing would be like new friendships, right? It's like him having a new female friend. That's also kind of weird, versus like if you guys both make a female friend together, that's different. And usually it'll be like, maybe they're a new couple friends and the four of you can go out together and he'll be like, hey, like I really like this girl, like she's really chill, blah, 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 versus like something that's a little more shady behind your back. I think if like people are open and it's like equitable and you have like the same relationship with this female, if it's a new person and otherwise, if it's an old person where he's like, it's really important for me if you get along with this person because I really respect her opinion.
I think that's a perfect way to end it with a bow. Cross-gender friendships can flourish if they're built on trust and shared interests. It all depends on the circumstances and many other factors. But if there's trust and everyone is aware of everything, then why not?
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for you and happy Rakhi.
Happy Rakhi.
Thank you so much for sipping the chai with me this week. If you like the show, remember to rate, review, and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram at Anish Ramakrishna. I would love to hear from you. Join me next week for more chai.